In Kisumu, where the lake glows like molten gold beneath the setting sun, the world slows down to listen. Among the winding roads and whispers of the breeze, one man stood taller than most, Brian Mwangi. He was rich, respected, and feared in equal measure. From his glass house on the hill, he looked down at the city that worshipped him. But power has a price. Beneath his calm surface hid a storm, a pride too heavy for peace to carry. This is where our story begins, when perfection begins to crack. Inside Brian's mansion, silence had a sound of its own, expensive and cold. Marble floors shone like mirrors. Chandeliers flickered against evening light. He stood by the window, adjusting his cufflinks, admiring the man he had become. His reflection smirked back at him, a man who mistook fear for respect. Down the corridor, Achieng laid out dinner, careful not to scrape the plates. Their eyes met across the table, but love had long packed its bags. He ate in silence. She swallowed words she no longer dared to speak. The house was grand and utterly empty. The clatter of a spoon broke the stillness. 7 years, Achieng. 7 years and nothing to show, Brian said, voice cold as metal. She looked up, eyes tired, voice trembling. We can see another doctor, Brian. Please, there's still hope. He scoffed, turning his face away. Hope? My friends mock me. My mother calls me cursed. Her hands shook as she reached for him, but he pulled back. The space between them became a wall made of pride. Outside, thunder rolled as if the sky itself disapproved. Brian's anger burst like lightning. You've made me a laughingstock, Achieng. I need an heir, not excuses. Tears streamed down her face, her voice breaking under the weight of years. I've prayed, I've tried, I've done everything. Please, don't give up on us. But mercy had already left his heart. He slammed his fist against the table, the echo sharp as betrayal. Tomorrow you leave my house, he said. Her knees gave way. Her plea fell unheard, and through the storm outside, her whisper rose. God, fight for me. Dawn crept into the mansion, washing away the shadows, but not the pain. Achieng packed her single brown bag, the weight of 7 years folded neatly inside. Housekeepers watched in silence, eyes lowered, guilt heavy in the air. She paused at the door one last time, glancing back at the marble prison she once called home. Then she whispered through trembling lips, One day, Brian, you'll know the truth. She stepped out as the first light touched her face, broken but not defeated. For every ending carries the seed of a beginning. The streets of Kisumu gleamed beneath the rain, every puddle reflecting pieces of her broken world. Achieng walked barefoot, her small bag pressed tight against her chest. Shop signs flickered, matatus roared past, and somewhere a dog barked into the dark. Each step echoed with the sound of what she'd lost: home, love, belonging. She looked up at the gray sky and whispered, You see me, don't you? The rain answered by washing the tears from her cheeks. In that lonely walk, pain began its slow transformation into strength. A faint light spilled through the wooden door of a small house. Naliaka appeared, blanket draped over her shoulders, eyes widening. Achieng? She gasped. For a heartbeat, neither spoke. Then arms reached, tears met tears. Inside, warmth replaced the night. The smell of chai filled the air, steam curling like a promise. You're safe now, Naliaka whispered, wrapping her in comfort. And for the first time in many months, Achieng allowed herself to breathe. 2 women sat at a small wooden table, their cups trembling in their hands. Achieng's voice was low. He threw me out, Naliaka. 7 years. And he said it's my fault. Naliaka reached across the table, eyes fierce with loyalty. Let the truth speak for you. We'll find a doctor. You deserve answers. Achieng nodded, the weight inside her heart shifting slightly. Outside, the last drops of rain fell like punctuation on a closed chapter. Night stretched long and heavy. Achieng lay on Naliaka's sofa, staring at the ceiling's faint cracks, hearing her heartbeat echo in the dark. Her pillow was wet, her body still trembling from humiliation. But behind those tears lived something quietly alive, a will refusing to die. She whispered into the silence, If you can hear me, give me strength. The clock ticked once more, and sleep finally came, thin but merciful. The next morning brought a different kind of dawn. 2 women climbed onto a bus bound for Nairobi, their faces marked by exhaustion but lit by hope. Through the dusty window, the road stretched like a prayer. When the city skyline appeared, Achieng's heart thudded in her chest. At the gates of Life Hope Medical Center, she hesitated. Naliaka squeezed her hand. Truth never hurts as much as a lie, she said. Together they walked inside, leaving fear at the door. The hallway smelled of sanitizer and quiet fear. Achieng sat between two mothers clutching babies, her hands twisted in her lap. Every tick of the clock felt louder than the next breath. Naliaka tried to smile, but worry lingered behind her eyes. "It'll be fine," she whispered. Achieng nodded, though her heart trembled. Beyond that white door waited a verdict 7 years in the making. She closed her eyes and prayed, not for miracles, but for truth. Dr. Kamau's office glowed with morning light. He adjusted his glasses and looked up kindly. "Madam Achieng," he began, "you are perfectly healthy." For a moment, the world stopped. Then breath rushed out of her chest like a storm breaking. "All this time," she whispered. "Yes," the doctor said gently. "The problem was never you." Tears blurred the edges of the room. Naliaka laughed through hers, half joy, half fury. Achieng smiled weakly. For the first time in years, she could breathe without guilt. Outside, sunlight spilled through jacaranda leaves, painting gold across her knees. Achieng sat on the bench, test results folded in trembling hands. Around her, Nairobi rushed on, unaware that one woman had just been set free. Naliaka handed her a bottle of water and whispered, "Told you. You're whole." Achieng nodded, eyes glistening. "He made me believe I was broken. Now you know better." The wind carried their laughter into the noise of the city, soft, defiant, beautiful. Weeks later, Kisumu's market buzzed with life. Stalls shimmered under sun-bleached umbrellas, smells of spice and smoke weaving through the air. Achieng moved through the crowd with purpose, bargaining, smiling, filling a basket with onions and rice. Sweat streaked her temples, but pride glowed in her eyes. Behind her, Naliaka carried more than groceries. She carried hope renewed. This wasn't survival anymore. It was a comeback. Morning mist lifted as Achieng's new stall came alive. Tin canopy, painted sign, 3 stoves breathing smoke into the sky. She stirred a pot, tasted the sauce, nodded. "Pilau beans chapati, hot and honest," Naliaka shouted, laughing like sunlight. Customers gathered, drawn by the scent and the smile behind it. For every meal served, a piece of her confidence returned. Under the rising heat of Kisumu, Achieng began to shine again. The lunchtime rush filled the street with heat and noise. Achieng wiped sweat from her brow as she ladled stew into plates. Then a soft voice cut through the clatter. "May I have 2 chapatis, please?" She looked up. Before her stood Eric Achieng, briefcase in hand, a smile kind enough to quiet the crowd. Their eyes met, 1 heartbeat, then 2. "Coming right up," she said, her tone shy but steady. He thanked her, took his meal, and lingered a moment longer than strangers do. Days turned into weeks, and every day at noon Eric returned. Always the same order, always the same smile. He'd ask how business was. She'd tease him about his tie. Soon the stall's corner became their quiet meeting ground. Naliaka watched with folded arms and a knowing grin. "He's coming for more than chapati," she whispered. Achieng laughed but said nothing. Yet deep down she felt a true life was stirring again. One golden evening, Eric found her sitting by Lake Victoria, eyes lost in the shimmer.
He sat beside her without words.
After a while she said, "I thought I'd forgotten how to laugh." "You didn't forget," he replied. "You just needed a reason again." Silence hung sweet between them, filled with the music of waves and wind. She smiled, a real smile this time. In that moment, her heart quietly began to forgive the past. Months later, in a modest Nairobi registry hall, Achieng stood in a pale kitenge dress. Eric's hands were steady as he slipped a simple ring onto her finger. No grand crowd, no cameras, just 2 souls exchanging promises life had nearly stolen. When the officer said, "You may sign," she did so with a tear of gratitude. Outside, the sun broke through a passing cloud. This time, love wasn't loud, it was enough. The kitchen smelled of onion, ginger, and happiness. Eric hummed as he chopped tomatoes. Achieng rolled dough, teasing him for his slow hands. Their laughter bounced off the walls like music. For years she had cooked in silence. Now every meal was a duet. He kissed her forehead, saying, "You make life taste good." And she knew, without speaking, that peace had finally found her. Sunlight spilled across the bed, painting gentle warmth over Achieng's face. She stirred, then pressed a hand to her stomach. Something felt different. The room tilted slightly. The scent of tea turned her pale. Eric looked up from the table. "You okay, love?" She smiled weakly, maybe just tired. But inside a quiet flutter began, an echo she hadn't dared dream of. She sat by the window staring into the morning sky, whispering, "Could it be?" The sterile brightness of the clinic couldn't dim the tremor in her hands. Eric's thumb circled her palm as the nurse smiled. "Dr. Kamau will see you shortly." Minutes stretched like hours until the curtain drew aside. Dr. Kamau stepped in with that same calm she remembered. "Madam Achieng, you're pregnant." The world blurred. Breath caught in her chest. Eric froze, disbelief melting into laughter. "Pregnant?" The doctor nodded, smiling. "Healthy and strong." Her tears came then, pure, unrestrained joy. "Let's take a look," Dr. Kamau said, guiding the probe across her belly. The screen flickered, one tiny pulse. Then another. And another. Eric leaned closer, eyes wide. "There are 3 of them?" The doctor laughed. "Triplets. A blessing multiplied." Achieng covered her mouth, sobbing through her smile. The room seemed to glow brighter, as if heaven itself leaned in to watch. Eric kissed her hand, his voice barely a whisper. "I told you God was listening." The sun poured through the windows as Eric lifted Achieng off her feet, spinning her gently. 3, he shouted through laughter. "Do you realize what that means?" "It means I need a bigger kitchen," she teased, and they both laughed until their sides hurt. Naliaka burst through the door with flowers and tears. "I knew you were chosen, my sister." Music, food, and joy filled the house like a heartbeat returning to life. Morning again in Kisumu. The lake gleamed like liquid gold. Achieng stood on the balcony, hands resting on the life growing within her. Peace glowed on her face. A woman once called barren, now a mother of 3. The wind carried her whisper, "Thank you for not forsaking me." Behind her, the city stirred, unaware that a miracle was taking its first breath.